إن الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا ثم أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله واللهم نور قلوبنا بنور القرآن اللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. Inshallah ta'ala, in today's brief khutbah, I'd like to share with you some reflections from Surah Al-Jum'ah, and I chose this surah on purpose because a lot of times, actually most of the time, Muslims, we come to Jum'ah over and over again, and very few times do we get an opportunity to talk about what makes Jum'ah itself and the prayer itself important. And even when we have a conversation about why it's important, most of the time we have the conversation in terms of how to make the most of your Friday, in terms of the sunan, the practices of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam of the morning, the night before, what part of the Quran to recite, how we should try and get to the prayer early, and all of those other kinds of etiquette of the prayer itself. And that's all important. But that's not what I want to share with you today. What I want to share with you today is the spirit, the wisdom, and really the fundamental strategy of Allah Azza wa Jal in putting this program inside the Muslim community and making it a permanent feature of the Muslim community. And I want to start with a very simple observation. You know, Muslims all over the world, they have halaqat, they have study circles, they have conferences and programs just like we do here in the United States. And when we do, we have to advertise those programs. We have to make announcements to tell people to come. There's going to be a program in the evening. There's going to be a program on the weekend. Nowadays we have to put Facebook pages up and tweet out and mass email people. Maybe even make YouTube videos to get the word out, etc., etc. Whatever means we can, we advertise programs. Even if they're religious in nature, we advertise them. Here's one program every single week on Friday afternoon that you don't get an email or you don't get a text message and you don't have to mark it in your calendar. It doesn't matter how religious you are or you're not religious at all. Maybe there's some of you in the audience, you don't know this place, this masjid, or any masjid for that matter, except for Friday afternoon. That's the only time you see this place. But you don't have to be told, you just come on your own. And that's something incredible. That the Muslim Ummah all together gathers. It gathers on this day without invitation, without even a reminder. We've been programmed, subhanAllah. The knowledgeable of us and not the very knowledgeable of us. The extremely committed and practicing of us, and those who are far from deen also, a good majority of them as well show up on this day. And you'll notice even a bigger community gathers, some of them who've even lost their way to the masjid on Jum'ah, you'll see them on the Eid prayer, right? You'll see those people that you'll never see any other time in the year. But regardless, I want to focus on this Friday. There's something Allah put inside this day, and this gathering in specific, that's very important. And you know, the Arab Spring is not too old now, and it's something that's still taking place, and you guys are hearing about it in the news all the time. You know, one of the scariest times for regimes was right after Jum'ah Salah. Because they knew automatically people are going to be gathered in all the masajid anyway, so as they're leaving, they're going to give more momentum to the protests, and more people will be out in the streets. So the thing that would terrify these regimes was Salatul Jum'ah. You think about that. Because they knew this is the time where Muslims will show their strength, their numbers, you know. But what is the spirit of this particular this day and this activity itself that gives it its power, this communal activity that all of us have the blessing to enjoy week after week after week? You know, in this surah, by the way, this is Surah Al-Jum'ah, I chose it on purpose. Surah Al-Jum'ah is the best place to learn the spirit, the wisdom of, and guidance about the Friday prayer itself. And if there's one ayah that summarizes the mission of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in just one ayah. If you can study years. For years you could study the life of Allah's Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. People that do their entire PhDs in like the Meccan period, or like the Hijrah, or one aspect of the Seerah, they can dedicate and study in depth and write books and books and books about one particular portion of the Seerah. But in this one ayah that belongs to the heart of the surah, it's the second ayah of the surah, Allah Azza wa Jal basically takes the entire mission of the Messenger and summarizes it. And in summary, the summary of this ayah as I shared with you, is basically the Messenger's job was to bring about, by Allah's permission, alayhi salatu wasalam, his job was to bring about a change in people's lives. You know, when we talk about great changes in the world, we think of, big empires. What they left behind were buildings. I just recently had a chance to go to Europe. And when I was in France, one of my relatives was showing me around in Paris, and they showed me the tomb of Napoleon, and these large military academies that they have all over Europe. These historical sites, these great empires of the world. If you go to places like Algeria, you'll see ruins of the Roman Empire. You go to Egypt, obviously, you'll see the ruins of the pharaohs from back in the day. This is what these great civilizations left behind, right? These cities or these ancient buildings and artifacts. And the only thing we have left of those civilizations is maybe sitting in a museum, or it's a broken down building where tourists go and take pictures. That's all that's left of them. What did our Messenger leave behind, alayhi salatu wasalam? You have to ask yourself. One has to think. There are no buildings left behind. Masjid al-Nabawi was made of mud at the time. It was covered in leaves. There's no monumental structures, great highways that you can point to and people can go and say, wow, look at that now, subhanAllah. The thing that the Messenger left behind, alayhi salatu wasalam, by Allah's permission, is incredible human beings that were monuments. Human beings that we point to and say, this is the product of a great teacher. These are the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala mujma'in. And who they left behind are the Tabi'een. And who the Tabi'een left behind are the generation after that. We are the product of Allah's Messenger's work, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. 23 years of labor. 23 years of labor of this man by Allah's permission. And today, a huge percentage of the population of the world says, La ilaha illallah. Something happened in these 23 years. And it's been summarized in this beautiful way in this ayah of Surah Al-Jum'ah. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. That's even more incredible. Before he even tells us what he does, he tells us something about the Messenger and his humble beginnings. He says, Allah is the one who appointed among the unlettered, al-ummiyin. Al-ummi, the Arabic word, is usually translated as unlettered. What it really means is someone as unaware of outside education as you and I were when we came out of our mother. You haven't been exposed to the outside world. All you know is basically, your only education is from your mother, essentially. This is ummi. This is the Messenger of Allah in this group of people that did not have libraries and universities. They did not have huge learning institutions and a huge history of literature and philosophy. They didn't have any of that. This is among whom the Messenger was sent, alayhi salatu wassalam. Nowadays, when you think of a person of influence, a person who's going to teach me something, you think of his credentials. Where did he graduate from? What's his degree? What are his qualifications? Allah tells you his qualifications before he even tells you what he does. He's sent among the ummiyin. Rasulan minhum. He's a messenger from among themselves. It's not that he's above them, he was just chosen among them. He was one of them. In another place in the Quran, Allah says, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Your companion, the one who spent the entire life with you. The Messenger himself, he's not an outsider. He's from among you. And on a side note, I should tell you, one of the things that disbelievers could not understand about the Messenger, ﷺ, but عَجِبُوا أَنْ جَاءَهُمْ مُنْذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ, they find it very strange that a warner came to them from among themselves. You know why that's weird to them? Because warnings come from the outside. Back in the day, there used to be someone who goes outside the village and sees an army coming, and he runs back to the village and says, hey, there's a danger coming from the outside. You have to be from the outside to give a warning. The Messenger is from among them, and he rises and he starts giving a warning of a danger coming. They say, how can that be? You didn't go anywhere. How did you get this information? So they themselves found it strange that he's from among them. Regardless, Allah tells us about this beginning. Put it in its historical place. This is a desert. the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, the Abyssinian Empire, these big kingdoms of the time, these huge governments of the time, with massive, massive armies are all around. But nobody even bothers to take over Arabia. Not because they were scared of Arabia, because there was no oil yet. Right? There was nothing there. There was nothing there to take over. What's the point? Why should we send our soldiers to go barbecue in the middle of the sand? What are they going to get out of that? So everybody left the Arabs alone for thousands of years. They thought of it as useless territory. You know what big governments do, right? To this day, when you have a big empire, all you're thinking about is expanding your empire. All you're thinking about is how do we take the borders further. You have to wonder, why are these Arabs left alone for thousands of years? They didn't see any value in this place. And if they don't see a value in the place, they will definitely not see a value in its people. They won't. And in this place that was considered just completely off the map for the big powers of the world, Allah sends His final messenger ﷺ and makes it the capital of the globe. But Ibrahim a.s., when he went there to settle his family, thousands of years even before then, the first description we get of Makkah is وَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي ذَرْعٍ, a valley that has no produce, it's useless. It doesn't even grow any plants. It's that kind of land, and that Allah made the capital of the globe for guidance, subhanAllah. And He said, so what does He do, this messenger, in these 23 years? What's His job? How does He bring about this amazing change that within 23 years it starts changing the globe? And how we think about, the most impactful event in history happens within 2 decades, the mission of this messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How does that happen? He says, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. We overlook this so easily. He says He narrates onto them, He reads onto the people Allah's ayat. What we understand that to mean is the Quran. The messenger's job, his first job, alayhi salatu wasalam, is to read onto the unlettered people the Quran. I argue with you today that most of us are unlettered. Most of the Muslims are unlettered. We don't know Quran. We may be knowledgeable in accounting. Some of you are very knowledgeable in your business. All of us are knowledgeable in taxes. There are people knowledgeable in the areas of medicine and in history, etc., etc. But when it comes to knowledge of Allah's book, we are unaware. We know things here and there we know. For the most part, we don't know stuff. We don't know. The messenger's first job is to introduce people to the incredible ayat of Allah. And there's no accident that this is mentioned in Surah Al-Jum'ah. Because to this day, the function of Jum'ah is to get people familiarized with the Quran. The job of the khatib is also يَتْلُو عَلَى النَّاسِ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. He should recite unto the people the ayat of Allah. Remind people of Allah through His word, through His book. Because I can try and prepare a speech, but if my speech is not centered around the word of Allah, it won't have the benefit that it can otherwise have. Something about this Quran brought an amazing change in those people. And you and I believe Quran is the perfect word of Allah, so we also have to believe it still has the same power. So if it is shared with people, it will bring about a change in people. It will bring about a change in people. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. He purifies them. The Messenger of Allah recites the ayat on the people, and by means of doing that, a purification is happening. Of course, the Messenger ﷺ is not just doing that every Friday, he's doing it all the time. But the convention every week, the big gathering every week is Jum'ah. It's this installation that Allah put, so that we get refreshed with our relationship with the Quran. That's what's supposed to happen every single Friday. Now let's talk a little bit about this purification. Because if there's one thing this ummah needs, you can argue, it's purification. We need cleaning up. A lot of dirty laundry inside of ourselves, inside the nafs, inside these greedy selves of ours, and out as a community also. We have our act to clean up. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says, by reciting this Quran onto the people, He's cleansing them, He's purifying them. I want to discuss purification in 2 ways. Usually when we think of purification, we think of something spiritual. You have to do a lot of dhikr to get tazkiyah. And when tazkiyah is discussed, we think of it in a spiritual sense. But also there's a purification of how you think, your attitudes, how you look at something. Young men especially, I'll give you an example of young men. You guys go out there, Muslim or not, doesn't even matter. You go out there and you're constantly presented with choices. And you're constantly presented with opportunities. Whether it's what career you're going to pick, or whether you're going to look at that girl crossing the street or not, or whether you're going to check something out on your phone or not, you're constantly presented with choices. And towards each of those choices, you have a certain attitude. You have an attitude about money. You have an attitude about a car. You have an attitude about where you live. You have an attitude towards your parents. You have an attitude towards your friends. All of these attitudes and the way you think about things, the Quran came to direct them. It came so we can learn to think about things a certain way, the way Allah wants us to think. It's not so much about knowledge. Knowledge is later. Knowledge is later. Training you how to think is more important. Training you and me how to think. This is purification. How do we think about the world around us? What do we understand to be beneficial and what do we understand to be harmful? You know, there are students, I'll give you a simple example of that. There are students that study medicine and they smoke. It's incredible, isn't it? They study medicine and they're top students. They get hundreds on every exam. And after the exam, man, I'm stressed out, and they go outside the hall and they're smoking. They tell them, you study medicine, man. Don't you know what it does to your lungs? He'll say, yeah, I know. I know what it does to my lungs. I know it damages them. I know I'm taking 7 minutes out of my life with every stogie I kill. He knows. Why do you do it? I don't know. I like it. The knowledge is there, but the attitude is not there. He hasn't convinced himself it's that harmful. He's not. Knowledge alone is not enough. Purification means we clean up our attitudes, not just what we know. A lot of times you're given advice and the first response in your mind is, yeah, I know, man, I know. I know that already. You're still going to do the wrong thing even if you're told, I know. It's as though you're saying, it's not important for me to know all over again. Nobody's asking you to know all over again. You already know. But purification means you need to change your attitude. That's why you and I need reminder all the time. Constantly. A khatib gets up and starts giving a khutbah about Surah Al-Asr. You say, man, I haven't heard Surah Al-Asr like 1,000 times. I already know this. Give me something new. Maybe you know it, but it hasn't changed your attitude about spending time. Maybe your attitude's not fixed yet. This is purification. It has to happen constantly. Like your car needs an oil change constantly, you and I need cleansing constantly. That's why this conference is put in place. The other purification, of course, is spiritual in nature. The Quran, what it makes you do is it makes you think about your life. How do you spend your days? When do you wake up? What's the first thing you do when you wake up? What do you do in your free time? Are you one of those people that you can't even sit still 2 minutes and do dhikr of Allah? The moment you have a couple of seconds, you pull out your cell phone and start knocking down buildings in Angry Birds? Is that who you become? Can't even help yourself? You become a zombie to this 99-cent game? It's taken over your life? There's some people that pathetic. They are. Are you the person who can't help themselves but check their Facebook status every 30 seconds? And every time someone puts a thumbs up, you go, oh, okay, I'm worth something as a human being now, finally. You know? That's what you've reduced yourself to. You know, this is also something that's destroying our hearts. Quran came to give us a sense of purpose. How to prioritize where should I be spending my time? What are the things I should just delete off of my phone? What is taken away from my life every single day? I mean, we got, 25,000 days on this planet on average? Every human being? Being taken away day by day. What are you going to do with those days? What are we going to do with that time? This is purification. After this purification, after someone's experienced a change in attitude, because that's all you can do in Jum'ah, right? Jum'ah is what, 25 minutes? 30 minutes? This khutbah? In a khutbah, I can't teach much. Nobody can. Well, all we can do is share a reminder. Maybe it will change your attitude about something. And after that, maybe then you are willing to learn. So Allah's Messenger, we learn about Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this ayah. First, he introduces people to the Quran. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. As a means of it, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, he cleanses people. Their attitudes and how they think about their life, their hearts. And then, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And then he teaches them the book and the wisdom. You know, reading something to someone is a one-way thing. But teaching someone is a two-way thing. For teaching, someone has to sit there and pay attention. This is not right now, this is not teaching. Teaching means I have to ask you questions, I have to give you tests, I have to make sure you learned it. It's two-way street. But until people have changed their attitude, there's no benefit in teaching them because they don't want to learn. Apply this even to our children. We think we're going to put our children in Islamic education, or we're going to put them behind a shaykh who's going to give a talk, and everything's going to get better. No. The first thing that needs to change in every human being, including children, is the attitude. Until the attitude is changed, learning is useless. It's useless entirely. You know, there are people that go to school and they don't want to go to school and they do terrible. Why? Because they don't want to. Attitude isn't there. But then Allah says, then after that, once the attitude is fixed, Now we've become an ummah of learning. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Then he teaches them the book and the wisdom. Now we become an educated, a reformed ummah. This is the spirit of Jum'ah. Every single Friday, you and I are supposed to get rejuvenated in our relationship with the Quran. There is no nation in the world. No nation in the world. There are nations that are far bigger than ours in population, 4 times our size, 3 times our size, of other religions. But they don't have the kind of gathering we have every Friday. We don't even realize. Whether many of us, we don't even know each other sitting in this audience. We don't know each other. We're of different countries and different backgrounds, and that's one of the amazing things about the United States, right? There must be like 50 countries in this hall right now, sitting side by side. We don't even speak each other's language. But there's one thing bringing us together. That's that one invitation by Allah Azza wa Jal. فَاسْعَوْا إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Rush to the remembrance of Allah. Allah created a reunion of all Muslims every single Friday. When we talk about how come the Muslims are not united, how come we don't take advantage of Friday and unite with each other at least? At least say salam to one person next to you. At least get to know one Muslim next to you. And this is how unity is built. Unity is not just built over the microphone talking about we need to be one. Allah physically put us together every week. Physically. And that's something we have to reflect upon and think about. How we take advantage of this colossal opportunity. In the end, inshallah ta'ala, what I want to share with you is something I personally feel it should be shared over and over again across all Muslims. Don't underestimate the power of the Quran in your life. Doesn't matter who you are, how much you know and how much you don't know. Myself even. When Allah Azza wa Jalla gives a reminder that when you open Quran and you try to learn it and try to understand it and try to benefit from what was said, like today I shared with you Surah Al-Jum'ah, for example, right? The 62nd surah. 62nd surah. One of the easiest things you can do is go home and read it. First read the Arabic, even if you don't know Arabic. If you can't, just read the Arabic. And then pick up a translation. And don't ask me which translation. Whatever you have at home, read something. Get a little closer to Quran. Share it with the wife. Share it with the husband. Share it with the children. This is what Allah said. What do you remember from the khutbah? Let's talk about it a little. As a family, we should get closer to Quran. This is the day to do it. Allah put a lot of barakah in this day, so we should try and do that, inshallah ta'ala. And slowly but surely, as the Arab says, right? The first thing that happens in heavy rain, first you feel a drop, then it floods, it just goes crazy. It's like that with the Quran. Maybe it's one ayah today, one little reminder tomorrow, but over time it'll become a really deep relationship with Quran. Don't underestimate these little things. And don't underestimate the value of them, especially when they're shared with your family. How many times your father gave you advice, something he said about Islam? You don't remember all of the speeches and all of the talks you sat through, all of the khutbahs you sat through, but your father gave you a bit of advice and it's still in your head. My dad told me one time this. Don't underestimate when you give advice to your children. They remember stuff. It sticks in their head, especially if it comes from you. They value those things. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us individuals and families that come closer and closer to the Quran every single Friday. May Allah Azza wa Jal give ourselves, the leaders, the du'at, the speakers, the khatibs of this ummah a sense of responsibility that we're supposed to be delivering a love and appreciation of the Quran and of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those whose sins are forgiven and that are able to make sincere tawbah to Allah and stay away from their sins. And as the days go by, they only get closer and closer to Allah and not further and further away. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us get away from our addictions to entertainment. May Allah Azza wa Jal help us appreciate that our time on this earth is limited and valuable, that it should not be wasted away in things that have no benefit here and no benefit in the next life. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us a love of useful activities, useful time spent in the worship of Allah or in learning beneficial things and in sharing beneficial things with one another and making ourselves better people for His sake alone. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.